I'm so excited. I know you all are excited. I know that I just talked to Roland. I was like, listen, I'm nervous. He was like, about what? I'm like, man, I don't know what to say to bring you up on the stage. Like you're Roland. So he was like, man, tell them to read the bio. It's in the agenda. Just read the agenda. So make sure you've already scanned the QR code so you can have access to that. But that's still not enough. We don't have people today that we can have enough people today to have enough touch points on folks who are really, really saying and doing what needs to be said and do and done unapologetically across the country every single day. I heard a bishop say once that we live our opinions, but we speak our opinions, but we live our convictions. And I don't know of any other person that I can turn on the television every single day at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time on his owned Black Star Network to hear it. That's right. To hear it the way it needs to be heard. This giant of a man, this giant of an advocate, you all know the things that Roland has done. You know that he's interviewed presidents, that he is an author. In fact, you all are going to be purchasing his book later today, entitled White Fear, How the Browning of America, and I better make sure I quote that right because he's going to come out here and say, no, you got that wrong, girl. You got that wrong. White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Mind. To my colleague that is in here, that is a white lady. I love you, Mary. You know, listen, anybody that is sensitive, let me just say, and Mary's not, just hold somebody's hand. There is no offense zone. Like, I was very intentional. We were very intentional about making sure that we had someone that was going to bring the funk. That's what we need. We need someone that's going to bring the funk. And so listen, just in case you do not know who I'm talking about, or if you have not seen him in his work, let's check him out.
We talk about aborting. We support life. Actually giving babies the opportunity to live. I'm confused. I'm so confused.
First of all, hold up. You're confused because you think I'm saying something that I'm not.
Well, tell me what you're saying.
What I'm telling you, I mean very clear. You cannot say you are pro-life when you vote against prenatal care for the mother. You cannot say you are pro-life when you vote against Head Start. You cannot say you're pro-life when you do not want to expand Medicaid to keep hospitals open. You cannot say you're pro-life when you have OBGYNs who are not available in your state. You cannot say you're pro-life when you have Black women who are dying at a higher rate during childbirth and you do nothing public policy-wise to fix it. You cannot say you're pro-life if you allow infant mortality rates to be sky high in areas where there are Black and brown people. What that tells me is you are anti-abortion. You are not pro-life. Right. Because if you are pro-life, you care about the child in the womb and the child is out. And if you are pro-life, you are standing there with Black folks when their kids are killed by cops. You are not silent. So if you're pro-life, be pro-life from the womb to the tomb, but not just in the womb. We talk about Black people.
I'm just saying, if you don't know what's about to happen to us this afternoon in Gaston, Alabama, let me reiterate, he is an author. He is going to be selling his book. You will get to purchase the book and take a photo with this young man. But if you are ready to bring the funk, I need you to stand to your feet, clap your hands, and welcome Mr. Roland Martin to Gaston, Alabama. Hey.
What's up, y'all? Y'all know how we do it? How y'all doing? Y'all know that's jam? Well, the alphas. I ain't want to drop that A step on y'all. I ain't want to drop it. How we doing? We good? All right. Glad to see everybody here. It is good to be back. I spend a lot of time here, Alabama. I literally was just here last week for our Black Journalists Convention. We were in Birmingham for our convention. And so we had a great time there. So it was very enjoyable. So let me do this here. So the brother run the camera. You're going to be on the camera because I'm moving. So I ain't going to be standing just at this podium, just letting you know. We also are live streaming this on the network. And like Deontay said, look, when you own it, you can do what you want, which is important because part of the problem that we have today in this space is that we're actually asking other people to tell our story. And so we're hoping they show up. We're hoping they provide coverage. You look at this gathering here, the reality is you're not going to see media outlets covering the folks who are in this room, covering this particular event. And so what often happens then is we see things that are happening and people say, well, I don't see our folks out here fighting on behalf of our children. I hear people on television saying, well, I don't see folks in Chicago fighting against gun violence. And I'm going, yeah, because you're not covering the stuff where it actually happens. The nation's first black newspaper was called Freedom's Journal. So it was launched on March 16, 1827. In the third paragraph, they said, we wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. And that really has been the position that I've always had. And that is, I'm not interested in asking somebody else for permission to cover our stories. And the reality is that speaks to us in so many different ways, in so many different areas. I was in the back and I was sitting there texting Tyler Perry and we were talking about a couple of things. And the same thing when he spoke to our Black Journalists Convention in 2018 in Detroit when I had him there. And of course, many people remember the speech he gave at the BET Awards. He says, look, he said, everybody's talking about Oscars so white. He said, that's fine. If you are spending all of your time trying to get a seat at somebody else's table, he said, that's great. He said, but I'm building my own table. And that's what he's done with his studio in Atlanta, what he's been able to do, because the reality is nothing changes in our society unless we own it. Because if you don't own it, then somebody else has the power. I tell this story all the time. I love people when they talk about, who's the most powerful basketball player. And so they always say LeBron James is the most powerful basketball player. And when Michael Jordan was playing, they said Michael Jordan is the most powerful basketball player. And they actually got it wrong because Michael Jordan, when he played, Michael Jordan did not actually have power. Michael Jordan had influence. Michael Jordan had leverage, but he didn't have power. You see, Michael Jordan may have been he was the greatest player on his basketball team, arguably greatest basketball player ever. I still say Bill Russell. He's got more rings than Michael. But what's interesting is that Jordan didn't own the Bulls. And when Jordan wanted some things done, Jerry Reinsdorf said no. Why? Because Jerry Reinsdorf owned the team. Jerry Krause was the general manager, and Jordan often didn't like Jerry Krause, but it didn't matter. Jerry Krause was still the general manager because Jerry Reinsdorf owned the team. And so for all of Michael Jordan's power, the reality is he didn't have power. Power rests in the hands of the person who can fire you or hire you. That's power. And in fact, he learned that when he went to the Washington Wizards. And so he was head of basketball operations. And then when Jordan decided to come back and play, that's when the Wizards, they sold out games. They had never made a profit in their history until Michael Jordan played. So then when he was tired of playing, he decided, okay, I'm going to come back and go back to my job in the front office. So he goes into a meeting with Ted Leonis, who then was a minority owner of the Washington Wizards, to go meet with Abe Pollin. Abe Pollin was the owner. So they go in. Michael says, hey, I'm retired. I want to come back to the front office. And Abe Pollin says, well, Michael, we appreciate all that you've done, but we're going in a different direction. And Abe Pollin then hands him a $10 million check, thanking him for his services. And Michael was sitting there stunned because he thought when he was done, he was going back to his old job. So he turns to Ted Leonis and looks at him like, what the hell's going on? And Leonis is looking at him like, I don't know what the hell is going on. I thought this was going to happen. And literally, Abe Pollin said, thank you, but no thanks. We appreciate all that you've done. Jordan storms out, leaves the $10 million check on the table, gets in his car, drives off the lot, pissed. Michael Jordan learned a lesson that day. you did not have power. Abe Pollard had power because he was one of the owners of an NBA franchise. Now, when Jordan later became an owner, Jordan had power because he owned the team, which he recently sold. And so I say that because that's the mistake that we're making. We go across this country and I hear black folks talk about gentrification and they keep complaining about it. And I keep saying, if you are a renter, you do not have power. The person owning your house, owning your complex, that person has power. And so we learn this valuable lesson constantly because here we are trying to go up against forces and we're complaining about what is being done because we're not literally seizing the power or using the power that we have because we are in a power imbalance. And when we talk about what is happening in so many facets of our community, that's really where we stand. Because part of this is we've gotten caught up in somebody else's game. And I have people even come to me and they say, well, man, it'd be great. I had guys telling me, man, it'd be great if you had a show on MSNBC or CNN. I said, but you do know if I had those people who have shows on it, they literally do not control their show. And I said, and I get your point because you're talking about this large platform and what it means and larger audience. I said, but the power is in the ability to be able to not only own the story, you can craft it, you can create the narrative. And that's hard for some people because for many of us, and we really want to be honest, and this probably will be my next book, because I've been talking about it. And the next book might be White Validation, where a lot of us are so caught up in becoming a crossover success that we lose sight of the fact that when you lose control of it, then you can't now set the narrative. And see, so for me, being able to own the show and now own a network and have 6 other shows on the network. And the thing is, because of who I am, I still can pick the phone up and I can call A-list celebrities and have them on the show. So the reality is I don't do what I do because there's CNN behind my name. And I decided a long time ago that I was never going to be in a situation where things happen in my career because the back of my name had a title on it. There's a great movie called The Insider, and it's a true story about tobacco fight between CBS and Big Tobacco. And there's a great scene where Lowell Bergman was a producer of 60 Minutes. He says, Lowell Bergman, 60 Minutes, I wonder if my calls will get returned when that's not the end of my name. And I remember watching that movie, and I said then, I will never say that because my calls will always get returned because of who I am, not a title behind my name. And I say all of that because when we're talking about why you are meeting, when you're in a position of power, of ownership, when you don't owe anybody anything, then you are in a position to say what it is that you want to say. See, I own the show. We have no debt. I owe nobody. I have no partners. In fact, I was calling out this advertising agency, and it was hilarious because the agency was not too particularly happy. I'm only checking my text message because my niece was calling me. Is it urgent? Y'all know I'm real black. Is it urgent? I'm in the middle of a speech. You would know this if you checked the family group chat. Yes, I am sending this text message. Yes, this is my oldest niece who I have to deal with all the time, who's always getting on my nerves. Huh? No, I don't love it. I don't. Thank good she got married, so she ain't got to keep asking me for money. Okay, all right, there we go. There you go. All right. What was I saying? When we talk about power and the ability to be able to control the story, to control the narrative. I mean, I've had these conversations with many people on this whole thing because they really missed the point. So when you don't owe anybody anything, then you can say what you want to say, and you don't care because they don't control your money. Paul Robeson was one of our greatest freedom fighters. And when Paul Robeson was fighting against racism in the 1940s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, America decided, oh, we're going to make sure to shut him up. So what then happened was, so he was one of the greatest singers, greatest actors. He was an amazing athlete. He was just an amazing, all-around true Renaissance man, one of our greatest freedom fighters. So what they did was they then took Paul Robeson's passport. Paul Robeson then could not make money singing internationally, and he literally died broke. He took his money. Harry Belafonte told me, and he wrote about this in his book, he said that when he saw what happened to Paul Robeson, he wanted to make sure that with his freedom fighting, his fight for civil rights, for human rights, that was never going to happen. So he always took care of his money. So he was ever in the position where they could try to come after his resources, he had already taken care of himself financially. And so when that happens, you have to understand that there are forces, because one of the greatest ways they come at folks, they go at pocketbook. And I remember I was at CNN and I was having this conversation, and I always believe in multiple revenue streams. And I had a white producer who's been quite paternalistic with his tone, and I don't tolerate that from anybody. And so he was basically saying, well, you know, you need to do this and you need to act right because what this could do for you. I said, whoa, bro. I said, let me help you out. I got 5 revenue streams. You are number 3, meaning there are 2 are higher than you. I said, so if anything happens here, I just simply turn this way and I keep moving. I needed him to understand you do not control my money, so therefore you do not control my voice. And that's really and unfortunately, that's what happens. And so I remember being at the National Charter Alliance, and they invited me to a meeting. And we're in the room, there's about 30 people in the room, and it's 2 black people in the room. And there's 1 Latino guy in the room, and everybody else in the room white. Now, I ain't got no problem with white folks, but I had to tell them, if we're gonna have a conversation about public education, and a majority of the people who are in schools today are black and brown, this room cannot look like this. So we're sitting in, I just told them. So we're sitting in the room and I'm talking and I'm trying to explain to them that you cannot advance this initiative if you don't have relationships with the Congressional Black Caucus, if you don't have relationships with black community leaders all across the country. And I said, y'all can't even get a meeting with the Congressional Black Caucus. I said, I have enough fraternity brothers. We have enough, I can call a chapter meeting and get a meeting. And so, and it was so funny because former Senator Mary Landrieu of Louisiana was at the table, and she raised her hand. She says, I just want to say a couple of things. Everything he's saying right. She says, we cannot advance this movement if we do not have alliances with black and Latino elected officials. Now, also, as I was talking, because I have an initiative called, I created one with my wife called School Choice is the Black Choice. It was a Latino gentleman. And so he said, you know, I keep hearing all this black stuff. I'm Latino. I'm all about unity. I was like, hey, man, be real clear with you. You can create Latino. You can create School Choice is Latino choice. You can create whatever you want to. Roland's here for black people. And so it was funny because the guy sitting next to me is with the Walton Foundation and a black staffer there. He really hadn't been listening to him because the guy was like, well, I don't really know who this guy is. And the black staffer was like, black people know who this guy is. And see, that was a perfect example of there are those of us in the black community that some white Americans don't know about. And the brother was kind of saying, no, I don't think you understand. Black people know who Roland Martin is. You may not know who he is, but black people know who he is. And so the guy was not sure about whether they want to do some business with me, with our initiative. And I'm sitting there trying to explain to him, I was like, you can't do a meeting with black people. I can. And I was trying to explain that. So after this particular meeting, he slides me a card. He was seriously sitting next to me, slides me a card. He said, I think it's time for us to talk. I'm like, yes, it is. Now, see, understand. We're sitting, and I want you to understand the opposite. So we're sitting in a room, and there are 2 black people in the room, 1 Latino guy. Everybody else is white. I wasn't scared to be black in that room. because I can't be scared to be in that room if I'm advocating on behalf of Black people. And then when I know exactly what is happening educational wise with Black people, I am not going to walk into certain spaces and I'm going to lessen my Blackness to make somebody else comfortable when the data shows exactly what is happening economically. And I'm gonna challenge white people, I'm gonna challenge Black people, I'm gonna challenge Latino people, Asian, I don't care. My motto as a journalist is, if you do good, I'm gonna talk about you. If you do bad, I'm gonna talk about you. At the end of the day, I'm gonna talk about you. That's my motto. And so the same thing applies when we're talking about what we're advocating for. And I think what often happens is too many of us are so unwilling to challenge status quo, to challenge power, and to actually advocate for Black with a capital B. And so when we did the school choices, the Black Choice Tour, and Neonta was participating, we went to Birmingham, we went to Montgomery, went to these different places, and it was interesting because I was going up against Black people who were against school choice, who were against charters, and so I remember we had the thing in Birmingham, and there was this one person, he was like going off, and they were like, "Oh man, so and so's on your panel," and I was like, first of all, I've debated many people. I done put many people in rhetorical body bags. Anybody saw Chris Christie on ABC This Week a couple of years ago? He's still mad. That was 2 years ago. Bill O'Reilly, all of them, take your pick. I've debated them all. I ain't afraid of nobody. I done checked President Obama. I called out Oprah. So I ain't afraid to hit nobody. Don't none of those folks pay my salary. Roll good. And see, when you're unafraid to challenge power, then you're actually walking in your full prosperity. You're walking in your anointing. And so where we are today, we've got to have people, Black people, we've got to have white people, Latinos, Asians, Native Americans, who are unwilling to silence themselves or temper their voice when we see what is happening educationally in this country. You should not walk into any meeting not pissed off. When you look at the billions of dollars that are being spent in these cities, in these states, in this country, and when you hear people angry when you're trying to change status quo, that should tick you off. See, for me, this is real easy. I went to public schools all my life, kindergarten all the way through college. I rode buses from elementary school all the way through college. I ain't never been to a private school. We drove by private schools, but I ain't never been to a private school. That's never happened. And so I love it when people say, Roland, positions you're talking about destroying education. I'm like, no, I'm not, because I'm literally seeing minds being destroyed because we're unwilling to change how we are teaching and reaching our children. I have one standard. It's not a Black standard. It's not a white standard. It's not a Texas standard. It's not an Alabama standard. It's a basic standard. Are our children being educated and properly positioned for the future to be able to have a better life than the ones their parents had? That's my only standard. Now, if you can show me y'all are doing the job, great. I will support that. I will advocate replicating that. But what I will never do is support failure. And I will never support failure no matter who is in control. And so I was in a meeting, and I remember I was speaking in Washington, D.C. It was a conference, and they were advocating for vouchers. And I knew the game. And again, I'm looking in the audience, and I ain't seen many people who look like me. And so I asked the question. I said, okay, all the people in the room, I said, if you really and truly believe in the power of vouchers, you should be advocating for vouchers to be used exclusively for the bottom 10% of students. And the room got real quiet. And I said, and the reason you should be doing that, I said, because the bottom 10% does not look like this room. Then everybody got real quiet. And about 4 years ago, Steve Perry called me. He said, hey, I'm on the phone. And there's a woman who runs an organization in Texas, and they were trying to get a voucher bill passed. And he said, I don't know about Texas. He said, but my man Roland's from Texas, so let's call him. So they called me. And so he's on the phone, she's on the phone. So she's telling me about what they're trying to do. She's like, we want to mobilize and organize Black and brown parents around this initiative. And so I said, what's the name of your group? So she told me, why is she talking? I'm Googling. So she's still talking. So when she got done, I was like, well, first of all, you're going to fail. I said, the proposal DOA. She's like, what do you mean? Now, mind, what she didn't realize, I was in Texas a couple of months earlier, and I was playing in the golf tournament with the Texas Legislative Black Caucus. They were all against it. And they were all coming to me like, Roland, we don't understand why you supporting this stuff. I said, well, let me explain to you why I'm supporting it. But I then began to explain to her, I'm trying to understand, how are you over a school choice initiative in Texas? And I said, let me ask you a question. Do you know who the high performing charter schools are in Texas that are Black charter schools? She says, no. I said, so I'm confused. You have a school choice organization and you don't even know who the high performing Black charters are in Dallas and Houston. I said, do you know why? She says, why? I said, because your whole board is white. I said, you're calling me wanting the Black parents to come to the state capitol to fight on behalf of an initiative, and you don't have any Black people on your board of directors. You can't even name to me the Black high-performing charter schools in Houston or Dallas. I said, you have no relationship with the Black community, but you want the Black community to come fight for you on an issue, and you don't even fight for the Black community. I said, so no, I ain't helping you with a damn thing. I said, here's my suggestion to you, because the Texas legislature meets every 2 years. I said, my suggestion to you is for you to take your behind to Houston and Dallas and go talk and meet with some Black people and some Black parents and some Black schools to learn what Black people want. And then when you do that, then you can ask Black people to come mobilize or organize to fight with you. I ain't heard from her since. But I needed her to understand you're not going to pimp my community to advocate for an issue, and I ain't never seen you. So what I'm saying is, no matter where we are, we've got to be willing to challenge people where they are. When someone says, oh, I believe in this issue and I'm advocating on behalf, we should be saying, no, what have you done? What are you doing? If we haven't seen you at meetings, if we haven't seen you talking resources and talking how to improve, all you're doing is paying lip service. And that's what I mean by challenging power. We can never change anything in this city, in this state, in this country, if we're unwilling to look somebody in the eye and say, what you're feeding to me is a bunch of BS, and I don't eat BS. Because there are a lot of people right now who are feeding us BS when it comes to education, and they care nothing about the future of our children. When we had an event in Selma, 90% of the people who were there were against what I was talking about. And we had a sister who was on the state school board. We had a brother who was with Alabama, was the Alabama Education Association? That's what it was. And so I mean, he was hot. I ain't care. And I'm hitting everybody. We had a sister who was the first female Division I athletic director. And this is what she said. She said, I would not authorize my scouts to come recruit any athlete in Selma because I know that based upon the scores, they will not be able to meet the minimum academic standards to play. So because of the state of education in Selma, she said, even your best athletes will not be able to qualify for scholarships. And folks in the meeting just telling us all this. And then I love it when the people always say that. I've been on shows where they say, well, if we had equal funding, that's always the line. And so the brother kept telling me that. And so I go, have you ever had equal funding? He went, yes. And I was like, really? I said, when? And so he mentioned the year. I said, well, what were your numbers? He said, well, they're better than they are now. I said, no, brother, not an answer. I need specifics. And then finally, a sister who was on this side, she says, I got it. She pulled up on her phone. The failure rate was around, in terms of meeting test scores, around 94%. I said, bruh, you think that's success? Now, again, when I'm looking at this issue, we're talking about education, I'm not looking at where our children are today. I'm projecting where they're going to be 25 years from now. When I'm looking at how our children are performing in a classroom, I'm looking at what is their life going to be like when they are 25, 30, 35, 40, and when they have children. And I love when somebody tells me, oh, well, Roland, I don't understand. You know, you're not an educator. You've never been in the classroom. I'm like, you right. My brother's been a teacher. Two of my sisters, one has been a specialist. I'm the only one who hasn't. But I know one thing. I've raised 6 nieces. And I've been the one responsible when two of my nieces came to us 4 grade levels behind. I know when the twins came to us at 18 months, when they went back a year later, they were 4 grade levels ahead of any other kid in nursery school. I understood exactly how we were teaching them and training them and raising them. I know exactly how my parents treated us. And what I made clear is I'm not going to let anybody dismiss the role of Black mothers and fathers and aunts and uncles when it comes to the education of our children. If we're talking about parental choice, our point is we're not just going to accept whatever somebody's giving us, a principal, a school board, a superintendent. Look, I had 2 parents. My parents, look, they're married 56 years. In June, both turned 76 this year, no college education, but every damn principal at every school we all went to knew exactly who the hell Mr. and Mrs. Martin was. I mean, like everybody. And they gave teachers hell. I remember we had one teacher called, they would complain to something about, you know, oh, your son's not acting right in the class. My dad was like, what do you exactly do? He was like, why are you calling me to handle your problem? I was sitting there like, damn, okay. I was like, I agree with you. Now, when he hung up, he was like, look, I need to shut your damn mouth up when your ass sitting in class. You're talking too much. I told my dad he needed to apologize to me for that because I was practicing then what I do now. I said, so you living in my house that I paid for, and I'm paying all your bills, so you owe me an apology because I was preparing then for my future life. I said, because I get paid to talk for a living now. I said, you benefiting from all this talking. I said, so all them butt whippers I got, you should apologize to me. He was like, that ain't happening. But they were constantly challenging those who were supposed to teach us. And they were constantly challenging them in every facet. And again, every school knew who my parents were. I remember being in the eighth grade and we're in the library and this teacher, Ms. Hart, she actually had the audacity, the mitigated gall, had a security guard check me to see if I had drugs on me. Because my eyes are bloodshot. First of all, my eyes been red since I was a kid. I grew up next to the ship channel in Houston, like literally all of them chemicals and everything from the day I was born. Grew up in Clinton Park in Houston. Like literally, I could look in the backyard and see the smokestack. So I got home. So I told my dad. My dad said, "Excuse me." So my dad said, "Go get the white pages." All right. So there's some people in this room. So the white pages was a thick book that had the phone numbers listed for businesses, for schools. Some of y'all looking like, I don't know some of y'all looking like, what the hell are the white pages? Y'all thought I was gonna call it the black pages. No, it's black print, but it's called the white pages. And the white pages, yellow pages. White pages about that thick, yellow pages about that thick. Some of y'all right now have no idea. Just go to a museum and or go to somebody's house who's 70 and older, go to somebody black, 70 and older, or somebody white, 70 and older. I guarantee you, they got a big ass book underneath. It's about 30 years old. You see what I'm talking about. So my dad said, go get the white pages. So I went and got the white pages. And he, in Harlem Middle School, he called principal. He called, I need to speak to Mr. Broussard. Sir, he's busy. I need to speak to Mr. Broussard. You tell Mr. Broussard, Mr. Martin is on the phone. Now, Mr. Broussard knew exactly who Mr. Martin was. Now, see, let me help y'all out. She put him through, which means that Mr. Broussard already had previous encounters with Mr. Martin. Now, see, let me help some of y'all out. If you ain't never talked to or called that principal, your call is not being put through when you call. Mr. Broussard knew who was on the phone. Mr. Broussard knew that black man is crazy. I better take his phone call because he had 3 kids in his school at one time and 2 more on the way. I got to deal with this black man for a long time. So he puts the call through, and my dad said, he said, my son just came home and with some disturbing news. He said, he said, first of all, none of my children ever use drugs. I dare anybody to question my kids using drugs. So my son is returning to school tomorrow. I fully expect that teacher to apologize to my son for what she did. And if he get home tomorrow and then tells me she did not apologize, I will be in your office 15 minutes after he comes home. Do you understand? And we ain't had no speakerphone because this where the rotary phones, wasn't no. I heard, yes, Mr. Martin, I understand. And the next day, I strolled up in that class. Now, you know the worst thing in the world when a teacher got to apologize to the student because you feeling yourself. And Ms. Hart, she was a white teacher. She had to apologize by having that security guard check me. But that never could happen, one, if mama and daddy were not engaged parents in the education of their children. And so if we're talking about how we are going to change this direction that we are in, it has to take place with the people who are in this room who are fully engaged and not nominally engaged. And I'm talking about it to the point, and see, there's some people who say, well, I think you're doing too much. There is no such thing as any parent doing too much if they're fighting for their child. Because understand, the fight that you are engaged in right now is going to have a direct cause and effect with the future life of your child. I could not be doing what I do today. I could not have met the people who I've met. I could not make the money that I make. I could not have done any of this stuff if I did not have 2 highly engaged, focused parents on the education of their 5 children. It could not happen. So I'm a living testimony to what happens when you have parents who care so much about what happens with their child that they are unwilling to accept anything from the school system, from the principal, from any of these people. And then what then happened was, because I bore witness to what they were doing every single day in our lives, that then translated into how I was also challenging a system when I was in school. I went to school of communications, Jack Hayes High School in Houston. And we had too often our equipment was broken and stuff wasn't working. And we would have district superintendents and others would come to the school and I'll be challenging them. Why isn't this stuff fixed? They were looking like, who the hell is this? And then my principal would be like, look, y'all might want to answer his question because I was giving them hell. See, the thing is, I wasn't going to accept a subpar education while I'm going through it. And so while we are talking about how do we raise up strong parents, we be raising up our strong kids to be challenging the very system they are sitting in. And trust me, I had some teachers and some principals and some people in the superintendent who were area superintendent. They were like, I don't know who the little black kid is. But I was the same way now I was then. That's where it started, because I knew that what was happening then had a direct correlation on my education. And I was not going to sit there and have parents who are taxpayers and have our money go to waste and just simply accept whatever folks were giving us. It was even to the point when my senior year, school communications, the teacher left, who was the television instructor for my freshman, sophomore, junior year. So I came to school early. Anytime stuff had to be shot, I was the one who they called. So when y'all understand, when you see me on camera, no, I can do everything behind the camera. I can set it up, I can record, I can do all sort of stuff like that. I can do all of it because that's what we learned in school. And so I came to school early and they said, hey, your new TV instructor is here. I was like, all right, so I go downstairs. I'm like, she told me who she was. I was like, all right, what have you done? And she looked at me like, just a student question me. I'm like, yeah, what's your resume? And then so she said, oh, she's a Prairie A&M graduate. She said she interned at CNN. Now she working here. I was like, I'm sorry. All you've done is intern? I said, you haven't actually worked in the business? She said, no. So I'll be back. I went upstairs. Who the hell hired this woman? They were like, what? I said, I'm sorry. This is my senior year. Y'all hired somebody who's only interned at CNN? She never actually had a job in television? What can this woman teach me? The communications director was looking like, Roland, I said, what can this woman teach me? And I was hot. And the reason I was hot, again, this was my senior year. I know I decided at 14 what I wanted to do. I did not want anybody teaching me who did not have more, who had less knowledge than me. That's how much I cared. So again, what I cared about came from my parents. And so me and her did not get along. I was like, she can't teach me jack. She couldn't. I'm just being straight up honest. And then one day the principal came in and had some guests and he asked her to set something up, but she couldn't do it. And so like next day she called me, she had to close my door. I was like, all right, what she want? She was like, look, we need to come to an agreement. She's like, you know how all this stuff work. I don't. And I was like, yep. She was like, so we need to come to an agreement. She told me what happened. I was kind of like, you know to set that damn shit up, huh? Now I want you to understand, I had people like, oh, man, you were hardcore. You were cocky. You were arrogant. I said, no, I was focused because I was not trying to waste a critical developmental year at the school because I knew exactly what my goal was. I walked onto that campus saying, I will leave here as the best student that has ever come through this school. That cannot happen if I'm getting a subpar education. So when I went to Texas A&M, I walked on the campus ahead of seniors. I challenged professors there. I had a professor teaching a television writing class who never worked in television. I was like, how can you teach me TV writing? You ain't never worked in TV. Just saying. And I literally told her, you know what? Why don't we do this here? Why don't you teach the rest of the class separately? I'll just be over here. I did. I'm trying to get you. Y'all like, okay, he really is crazy. But again, I knew what I wanted and I could not accept weak teaching because it was not going to get me where I wanted to go. That came from watching parents demand a high level of excellence from principals and teachers. And so by me bearing witness to that, I then said the exact same thing. So I'm saying all of that for you to understand what you're doing here, what you're trying to accomplish is going to have a direct relationship as to how your child sees your level of interaction in their education. And then you putting that foot against somebody's neck in the school system, I'm sure you riding their behinds real hard as well. And they're going to understand that in 15, 20, 30 years from now, they're going to say, thank God I had a mama and a daddy and an aunt and an uncle that cared about my education, because we already know what the difference between those with a college degree and those with a high school diploma when it comes to earnings. We understand the difference in terms of salary, negotiation. We understand the difference between those who own homes and those who don't. Literally, what you're doing right now is going to have a direct bearing on the future economic imbalance between blacks and whites in America. I need you to understand this thing is much. I need you to understand this is not just about you. What you're doing here can literally change the future direction of Black America. Okay, some of y'all don't believe me. I get it. Some of y'all don't believe me. Okay, got it. How far is Montgomery from here? No, how far is it? 2 hours. So I want you to put this, I need you to see this a lot differently. Okay? So look to the person to your right. Just look to the person to your right. If you don't know him, just say, give him a head nod. All the Black people like, what's up? Okay? Look to the person to your left. I want you to understand that literally there are more people who are sitting in this room right now than the number of people who were sitting in a basement in Montgomery in 1955. Again, I need you to understand when I say just the gathering in this room has the potential to literally alter the history of America based upon what you're willing to do after you leave here. Everybody, many of us, when we talk about the Montgomery bus boycott, we ignore the fact that the Montgomery bus boycott, yes, it lasted 382 days, but it was initially a one-day boycott. It was never designed to last 382. It was one day. When 50,000 Black people did not get on a bus, they then said, let's do 5. After the 5th day, they then said, let's continue this. When they sat in a basement in Montgomery, and when they chose Dr. King to lead the Montgomery Improvement Association, they literally voted in the basement. Then they said, look, there's a whole church waiting on us upstairs. If you've been to that church, that is not a large church. It is not a mega church. So it was not like 5,000 people were waiting upstairs. So a small number of people in a basement in Montgomery agreed to move forward with the Montgomery Improvement Association, which was actually laid out at the table by a Black woman, Joanne Robinson, and Fred Gray. That's where the idea came from. 2 people. I want you to remember that. 2 people at a kitchen table sat there and put the pieces together of what became the Montgomery bus boycott. 2 people. 2 people then got with a women's group. That group is largely ignored in the annals of history, but it was Black women that then took it from Joanne Robinson and then it morphed into the MIA, and then King then became the leader, and then it went from there. So they then said that they launched it 1 day, 5 day, then 382 days. After the Supreme Court decision, they then said, what's next? So when we talk about the Black freedom movement called the Civil Rights Movement, we have to understand we can't talk about these things within the context of 64 Civil Rights Act, 65 Voting Rights Act, 68 Fair Housing Act. You can't talk about all these different things. You can't talk about all these things that happened from 68 back to 55 or from 68 forward if you ignore the reality that a very small group of people gathered to have a one-day boycott that went to 5, that went to 382, that literally sparked what is now an internationally known movement. So right now in 2023, there are people who are protesting for issues in other countries who are referencing Montgomery. You can go to other countries and walk or drive on Martin Luther King drives. not just in black neighborhoods in the United States. When they had the Arab uprising, the Arab Spring, there were people literally wearing signs that said, "I am a man." The exact signs that black garbage workers wore in Memphis in 1968. So what I'm trying to get you to understand is that you should not look at this gathering on August 12th, 2023, solely through the lens of it's just a small group of us meeting, fighting on behalf of education for our children today. I guarantee you somebody in this room has said at one point today, man, this room should be packed. I get, see some of y'all like, dang, he must be listening to my conversation. But I need you to understand that you don't need this room to be packed to the walls and outside in order to actually create a revolution or a movement that could literally change the future direction of this country, of this entire race. And so what I'm trying to get you to see is that when we decide that we're going to focus on this one thing, and we're going to do this for the next 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, year, whatever, and not worry about who's not here, not worry about who didn't show up, not worry about, man, I wish so-and-so should have been here. Because see, I don't waste my time with folk who are not here. So somebody says, man, this room should be filled. This is how basic it is. If you look at the size of this room, if you literally meet 6 months from now, and if each person in this room brought one person with them, you would not have any space left. Why am I breaking it down that simple? It's because one of our greatest mistakes when we talk about how do we transform things, transform communities, is we're so caught up on who's not here, who didn't show up, who should have been here. We overlook who actually showed up. We focus on why so-and-so should be here. I don't worry about who's not here. I spoke to my parents' men's church, place seated 3,000, and somebody said, we had probably about 800 brothers. Somebody said, man, it should be packed. I said, bruh, I don't talk to empty chairs. I talk to chairs where somebody's seated. And I was trying to get them to understand that. So when we now step back and go, okay, you're black Alabamians for education. So now what's next? What's next? How do we now take what I call moments and literally transform them into movements? You have the bearings right now already of a collection of people that when it's time to move on school districts, you have the data of who's already showed up. So who's from Birmingham? Raise your hand. Got it. Who's from Gaston? Raise your hand. Got it. Who's from Huntsville? Who's from Montgomery? Who's from Mobile? Who's from, so follow what I'm saying. So you already have, so the number of Gaston folks in here, when it's time to mobilize and organize something specific with the school district, you already have the body of people to march to the school district. You bring one each, they're gonna look up and say, who in the hell are these 300 people showing up? What's going on? See, what happens is, and this is one of the greatest mistakes that we do in our community, we have short-term gatherings with no long-term plans. I need you to understand, when she showed you the video of my show and mentioned the network, I launched the show on September 4th, 2018. I launched the network on September 4th, 2021. When I launched the first show, the plan was always to have a network, but I can't get to a network unless I have a successful show. One show now has 7 shows, but the plan was always a network, but I couldn't launch the network first if I don't have one successful show. And so what I want you to do leaving here, I want you now to be thinking about, am I in this for the long term? Montgomery started December 1st, 1955. It was driven by August 28th, 1955, the lynching of Emmett Till. Starts 55. That's a 13-year process. So you now have to make a decision. Am I only here for today? Am I only here for when my child graduates? Or am I committed to this concept for now until I become an ancestor? Because if you say we are committed as a group, then now all of a sudden you have the creations of an entity that folk will look back 5 years from now and go, where did these black and white folks come from? How did they grow to be so large and so powerful? And then all of a sudden, you're now in a position to truly challenge power. Now you're in a position to seize power. Now you're in a position to control assets. And part of the problem for a lot of us, especially those who are not college educated, who haven't gone other places, is that we don't truly believe what is possible. I knew somebody asked me, because I just got into last year's Society of Professional Journalists Hall of Fame, the year before the National Association of Black Journalists Hall of Fame, and I got asked a question. And the question was, I bet you never imagined you would achieve the things that you have done. And I said, you're wrong. I did. And they looked at me like, what? Now, mind you, when an athlete says that, we applaud it. Today, my man Dwayne Wade is going to the Hall of Fame. If Dwayne Wade said as a high school player, I want to be in the Basketball Hall of Fame one day, they're like, oh my God, that's awesome. But when you're black and you don't play sports and you envision the life you want to have, then folk look at you like you crazy, cocky, arrogant, and out of your mind. So I needed the reporter to understand, no, everything that has transpired in my career, I absolutely envisioned it. I saw it. I said it. I articulated it. And I then demanded those teach me what I need to learn, because I knew where I was trying to go and what I was trying to get to. So no, I wasn't shocked that I achieved what I dreamed and what I visualized. And so what I'm saying to you is, right now, you should be thinking and visualizing, how far do we want to take this? What do we want to build? How major do we want this to be? And if you think large enough, you literally can create an educational movement that could rival the civil rights movement, that could change black folks economically, educationally, and all the things we're talking about that have not been accomplished can be accomplished, but it cannot be done unless there is a group of people today willing to sacrifice, willing to meet, willing to organize, willing to mobilize, willing to challenge one another to be able to achieve that. And if that happens, then 10, 20, 30, 50 years from now, there'll be people meeting in this state and meeting across the country, and they'll be asking, how did all of this change? And they will say, because a group of people with a common mission and a common purpose gathered in a ballroom in Gaston, Alabama, and they said they had the audacity to actually think bigger and think broader and larger, and thank God they did. But none of that can happen if when you leave here, you don't continue the work. Last point. I get young journalists come up to me and they say, man, I want to do what you do. And I know what they're actually talking about. That means they want the selfies. They want to be able to call major celebrities on their cell phones. They want to be able to be known. But my response to them is, but do you want to do what I do? Then they look at me like I'm crazy. I said, no, not what I did, what I do. Because they think what I did is past tense. I'm still working today. The work ethic still happens today. I could sit here and rest and chill. I could easily say, oh, NABJ, youngest living member inductee to the Hall of Fame. But my career didn't stop at 52. I got more stuff I want to do, which means that's the work. Which means that what you're about to embark on is going to tick some people off. And they might be in your family. They might be at your church. They might be the same political party. They might be your fraternity or sorority. They might be Eastern Star, might be Prince Hall Mason, might be Lynx, might be Alphas and Deltas. It does not matter. Some folk are not going to be happy with what you're doing. They're going to say, well, why are you challenging? Why are you doing this here? Because, and your answer is because I'm doing it for not just my children, my children's 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 children. When people are focused on lineage, then you understand how things change. We literally are sitting here because there were a group of people who were enslaved physically, but were not enslaved mentally. I never, ever allow anybody to call Black folks lazy and unaccomplished when I cannot derive from a people that went through holy hell for 243 years, and then an additional 12 years of Reconstruction, and then 92 years of Jim Crow, and then the last 50 plus years, and we still are not fully free Americans. Which means that, and let me be clear, and those who are white allies who stand with us, who today are being treated like modern day James Reed and Viola Liuzzo and others who died fighting with us as well. What I'm trying to get us to understand is when you have a commitment, not just about you, but about your kids' kids, then you are doing the exact same thing our ancestors did. And so if today we talk about Black political power and they always mention the Black Panther Party in Lowndes County, if today they talk about the Black Belt and the foot soldiers, today they talk about the children in the Birmingham movement, if today we talk about in such lofty ways with those Black folks who put it on the line for us to be where we are, I want you to close your eyes and visualize them saying the exact same thing 50 years from now about a small group of Black folks and white folks who gathered in Gaston, who had the audacity to actually say, we can make this thing better for our people. That is what should motivate you every single day. Thanks a bunch. So Deontay, what we got? We got questions? What are we doing? Where'd she go? Okay, we got questions. Who has a question? I'll wait till she come on stage. I don't know where she at. Somebody got a question? Anybody? Yes. Stand up.
How do you decide that this was the space for your
Media is the second most powerful institution in the world behind the military. So when you look at, anytime there's a coup anywhere in the world, they get control of the guns first and media second. Media controls hearts and minds. So when you understand that level of power, media can build people up, take people down. Media can elevate folks and it can crush people. And so for me, it was understanding that. So it came down to two schools of communications. School of communications and law enforcement and criminal justice. Communications or lawyer, one of those two. And so that's what it was. And then when you begin to study and you begin to realize again how you can change things. I had somebody come up to me and the brother said, he said, man, you got the anointing, you should preach. I was like, nah, brother, it ain't happening. I did. I said, he said, well, I don't understand. I said, well, first of all, I said, I was in prayer and God said, I got enough people preaching. He said, you can speak to more people in 5 minutes of television than some preachers will speak to in an entire year. The question is then, how do you use that mic? If you go look at my Breakfast Club interview, I told Charlemagne and Envy the same thing. I said, respect the mic, because what comes out of your mouth into this microphone touches millions. So last night in Birmingham, a sister came up to me and she said, I made this blanket for you. She said, my mama homeschooled me, and all these years, you were my Black history teacher. She said, my mama made me watch your show, and the stuff that you covered literally taught me Black history my whole education life. So you never know who's on the other side of what you're, who's receiving what you're sending out. So when you use that mic properly, you know how you can impact. I got people come up to me and they say, I ran for office because I learned politics from you. I had a brother came to me at the Cincinnati Music Festival. He said, man, I went back to college because of you. So again, it's how you use your gift, how you can impact people. Next, yes.
Question. We have the Supreme Court redistricting issue.
Yep.
Tomorrow, Monday, the court is reconvening.
Yep.
Are you going to cover? I don't think you covered.
Yes, we have. Oh, yes, we have. I covered before the Supreme Court decision. Absolutely. And the Louisiana case. Oh, no, we've been on it. Oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Yes. Stand up. Great.
Watch Roland every day.
Yeah, I mean, understand. The reality is my show is 2 hours a day. We have another daily show. We have weekly shows. I mean, we cover these stories every single day. But we don't cover them just how mainstream media does. We're not going to spend 3, 4, 5 minutes. We're going to spend 30, 40, 50 minutes and then really unpacking it, but also walking folks through, having those lawyers on. The Alabama case that went to the Supreme Court, I actually had the plaintiff on the show with the lawyers on the show. So we've done that, but we also explained to people what the ruling was and what's going to happen after that. So what happens all the time, though, is when you see stories, and this is the mistake that we make when we only follow mainstream media, okay? They likely are not going to continue to cover the story. We're covering all the nuances of it. And so that's really how we do it. And so that's why Black-owned media is critically important. All the things I talked about, we're not here if you don't have Black newspapers. See, everybody, I remember Doris Kearns Goodwin, big time historian. She was on Meet the Press, and she praised the New York Times for running the photo of Emmett Till. And I immediately tweeted her. I said, "Oh hell no! You're not going to give the New York Times credit for the Emmett Till photo, and you're going to ignore the Chicago Defender and Jet." I'm like, they ran it before the New York Times, and so understand we have to watch and support our own. So that's what I'm saying. So we've been all over that story. We've had members of Congress on, we had the lawyers on, we had the plaintiff on. And not just that, again, the case out of Louisiana as well, the cases out of Florida. We've been covering the same issues in North Carolina, in South Carolina, all these states, because it all revolves around political power. And so it's the sources of information that we're getting it from. And I'm just going to tell you right now, the stuff that we do that speaks to African Americans, MSNBC, CNN can't touch. When I was at TV One, we were the television critics tour. And actually, I said this before when I ran Chicago Defender. We're sitting with Television Critics Association. I'm sitting there with Alfred Liggins, the CEO of TV One. And so one of the critics asked me, they said, well, you're starting this morning show, but how are you going to compete with the Today Show and Good Morning America? I said, I'm not. So Today Show, Good Morning America makes $500-600 million in profit for those networks. I said, I'm not competing with them every single day. I said, but I can guarantee you one thing, they will never out-black me. And so the CEO, he looked at me, he's like, hold up, he black. He's like, I ain't never heard that before. I said, here's the deal. They can cover wars. They can cover all these things happening around the world. They can cover all this Hunter Biden, all this sort of stuff. But on a black story, ain't nobody out blacking me. Nobody. And I don't allow folk to then say, well, Roland, we're going to do the interview with MSNBC and CNN. We might get to you. Oh, no, you're not. You're going to come talk to me before you talk to them. Because see, on the next story, when they don't have you on, then you're going to come to me. Then I'm going to remind you what you did last time. So I advise you, don't blow me off this time because it's going to be a problem next time. And I've told some people that. I don't allow anybody treating black-owned media second class. Nobody. So we're going to cover it. And so again, that's the stuff that we do 5 days a week, 2 hours a day, and have done it for almost 5 years. Next question.
No more questions.
No more questions. I'm gonna take one more question.
One more.
I'm taking one more question.
All right, one more. We started late. It's on you.
Tell me no more questions.
Can I co-answer that question?
Go.
Okay, I just want to co-answer by saying the way you stay informed is know who you elected to serve you. Yep. Know who your school board rep is. Know who your city council member is. Know who your state senator is. Know who our state representatives are. I'm an elected official, and I'm telling you to know me.
But even if, like I said this last night, everybody black in Alabama think Terry Sewell is their congresswoman.
No.
Now, let me clear. You might live in somebody else's congressional district. You are still a constituent. They still answer to you. What many of us do, we go, oh, I didn't vote for that person, so I'm good. No. You are still a constituent. And so I grew up, again, parents who were involved in Civic Club, challenging. I remember speaking to the city council when I was in 10th grade. So you are a constituent. Understand, this governor has to answer to you. This attorney general has to answer to you. The State Board of Education has to answer to you. You cannot be, when you walk into any of these meetings, you lead with, I am a constituent. You are not going to ignore me just because I'm not white or conservative. Look, Texas, I'm a graduate of Texas A&M. We just went through this ridiculous debacle where they didn't want to hire the sister, Kathleen McElroy. We got text messages where a board of regents are saying, oh, this is an awful hire. I thought we were creating this journalism school to create more conservative journalists to get our message out. I call for those two to resign. I said, if you're members of the Texas A&M Board of Regents, you represent the state, not your white conservative interest. And other people kind of like, well, and I made it clear. I said, I'm going after all of y'all. So again, that's where we have to be unwilling to challenge power and knowing very well who represents us. Last question. Who we got? Last question. Yep. Well, our Black Star Network app. So you can actually download our app. We're on the Apple phone.
Everybody got a Fire Stick.
Yeah.
Download the app on your Fire Stick.
Android phone, Apple phone, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, all of those. But also, again, go to YouTube. At the end of the day, that's worldwide. So we're on there. You know, our network, we're on Plex. We have a 24-hour streaming channel on Amazon News, on Plex TV as well. But we're on all different platforms. But I make it easy to folks. Just go to the YouTube channel. And if you missed the live show, we then restream it 5 times in the next 24 hours. And the beauty is, the content is always there, and that's the piece. And so these things are continuing to happen. You know, these issues that we cover. Again, we'll be restreaming this. And again, that's the power of when you control the platform. You're not asking somebody, can you please cover this? We're like, we're good. We got it because we own it. Where'd she go? She come out here telling me no more questions. Now she gone. All right, I'm gonna take one more question. You move, you lose. Yeah. No, you moved. Well, first of all, I'm expanding your question. So if you are on social media, raise your hand. I'm talking about any social media platform. If you're on Facebook, Instagram, keep your hands up. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, fan base, LinkedIn, all the platforms. Now, I have 4 million followers, but I want you to understand, when you now look at your numbers collectively, you now can drive your message. So imagine if a tweet is put together with a graphic, boom, email goes out. I want everybody posting this. You post it, you post it, you post it, you post it, you post it. So now all of a sudden you got your hashtag, it's all now going out. What you then do, you tag prominent people in your post. So let's say you put at Roland S. Martin and you put 5 others. What then happens is it now shows up on my feed. It's easier for me to retweet that because it's showing up in my feed versus me possibly seeing it outside of my feed. So now you're talking about creating messaging that's now being amplified a lot quicker. It goes out. There are people who hit me directly, Roland, did you see this story? Boom, I see it. They might email me or they might DM me. Boom, goes to my producer. It might be on the show that night. So never assume that someone like me sees everything. You should be thinking collectively how you're able to now use each other's platforms and now aggregate that to now begin to drive a message. And so when they elected official, if there's somebody you're going after, imagine every post tagging them 100, 200 times. The algorithm picks it up, and then all of a sudden that thing is now being replicated. And so now you're using the power. And so that's where you're not worrying about if media shows up. You, in essence, are using your own media to drive your message, and then you're sort of building it that way. There you go.
Give it up for Roland. Well, you know, we can't thank you enough. This city is truly blessed, Roland, to have you here. I'm grateful. The way I met Roland was through BAYO, the Black Alliance for Educational Options with Dr. Howard Fuller. I was living in Nashville and working with BAYO, and we had a little bit of resources, and I knew my time was coming closely to an end, and you were at Howard University. And I was like, I'm about to do 2 birds with 1 stone. I'm going to the new African American Museum, and I'm going to see Roland. And he gonna know me because I came in there with a t-shirt, like, look at this t-shirt. And it was about education, but I met Roland then. And of course, with BAYO, you had been through a lot of different events and activities with us. And so when we were blessed with this opportunity, I said, man, I'm bringing Roland home to Gaston. The people love you here. They in the room. Divine 9 is in here. We know you love Alpha. And we know Alpha loves you.
Life member.
We know what does he say? That your founder, frat brother Vernon.
Vernon Woodson Tandy.
What does he say?
He said, we will fight until hell freezes over, and then we will fight on the ice.
Well, we don't have no ice, and I hope this not upside down. But we wanted to present you with something that we know you love. I hope you don't have this already.
I don't.
Good. We expect to see that in the studio behind the screen.
She's like asking me, she's like, what's your line name? Where you play? Like, girls in the bio.
Yeah, I didn't read that. That was too long. We know he's dope. But look at that. We just wanted to present you with something nice on behalf of Black Alabamians. So let me get in that photo.
This can't fit in a suitcase.
We'll get it back.
We gotta ship this one.
Yes. Okay. So what's next? We have abbreviated the second half of the day. And so at this point, 3 things are going to happen at the same time. The session. Yeah, give it up. Give it up. Give it up. Give it up. Thank you. Thank you.
Hold on. We'll take one more from my phone. Come on.
Okay.
Take one on my phone. So I got a couple of followers.
Make sure you tag Black Alabamians.
You gonna tell me? Make sure I tag.
I'm just saying, you giving us.
I'm not giving
you giving the sauce, so I just want to make sure.
Make sure.
All right.
Gonna tell me? Okay, hold on.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna take a group
Let's
selfie.
do a selfie.
Shh, I got this. Ain't my first time. All right, hold up. Let's see if we got everybody in here. All right, we're gonna take on that side first. Okay, everybody on that side, smile. Okay, we're gonna go on that side over there. Okay, everybody. All right, there we go. Okay.
Guest is in the building. Okay. I feel like I'm about to MC something. All right, y'all. We're gonna try to do 3 things at the same time. Roland is definitely doing selling his books and signing his books out front. So he's gonna be here until you all decide that everybody has purchased and you're done. We are still going to have the other 2 breakout sessions. We're going to try to do them in like 20, 25 minutes. So if you want to do the college and career readiness standards, I'm going to facilitate that. Going to move really fast, but it's great information that you should have. That's going to be in meeting room 2. And meeting room 3, do we still have time, Dr. Richmond? She's over there mad at us because we dug. If you had our first session, you know she's mad because we dug into her time. But in this second session, she's going to facilitate as well. And then we're going to come back in here for a 3 p.m. workforce industry panel. You guys got to hear from folks who are in the workforce industry to understand what's happening in the state of Alabama and across the country with employability opportunities. So the stage will change. So I'm wasting our time. Go ahead and go to your sessions where you want to be, or if you want to be out front, and he's going to be here. So you won't miss the opportunity to get a photo, to get a book signed. And I hope this was great. And we are dismissed from this piece.